Hello, friend. I want to tell you about the car. The Skoda Fabia offered everything the customer needed, and its attractive appearance for the B segment remained fresh for a long time. It is hard to find a car of this size that is as cheap to buy, maintain, spacious, and reliable. The Skoda Fabia II, presented in 2007, debuted 7 years after the start of production of the first generation, which established the brand's reputation and fit well into the market of cheap cars, primarily for companies, but also for families. It offered a spacious interior, good ergonomics, a large boot and economical engines, and all this for reasonable money. The car was correct in every respect, although a bit boring compared to the Volkswagen Polo or Seat Ibiza. The appearance of the Fabia was betrayed by the Skoda Roomster, presented a year earlier. Stylistically, both cars are similar, but technically, and in fact, the Combi van is based on the Golf 4 chassis. The simpler and cheaper PQ24 floor pan was used to build the Fabia, the same as in the Polo, Ibiza, and Cordoba. The strongest points of the Skoda Fabia. The Fabia's greatest asset is its bodywork, but not its build quality, which remains quite low. After a few years, the unusual door seals stiffen up and are a nuisance in winter. The paint layer is also not particularly durable. Interestingly, the most durable is the base coat, blue or white, which has higher resistance than the metallic ones. The body of the almost 4 m long and almost 1.5 m high car has been used to the maximum. As an owner of such a vehicle, and at the same time someone who had dealings with its successor, I think that the Fabia II has a better planned and more spacious interior. It is also more practical, but much worse made, uneven gaps between often protruding elements, and it is slightly less comfortable to sit in. Large selection of engines, something for everyone. Another advantage of the Skoda Fabia as a new car was a wide selection of engines, from the simplest and smallest petrol and diesel engines to powerful engines generating over 100 horsepower. 1.2, HTP 6.5 and later 12.5, 60 and 70 horsepower. Weak base engine with poor performance and low durability. Problems with timing drive. The only 3-cylinder petrol engine intended mainly for fleets. 1.2, TSI, 86 and 105 horsepower. A powerful and dynamic, but often problematic turbo unit. One of 2 petrol engines not suitable for use with a gas installation. 1.4 MPI, 16.5, 86 horsepower. A dynamic, simple, and reliable engine, which initially had minor problems with the lubrication system. Ideal for LPG. 1.4 TSI, 180 horsepower. A very dynamic and failure-prone unit of the Sports RS version. Not suitable for LPG. 1.6 MPI, 105 horsepower, the best petrol engine in the model. Simple, dynamic, and reliable. Higher fuel consumption should be compensated by installing LPG, for which this unit is ideal. The range of Skoda Fabia II diesel engines with description: 1.2 TDI, 75 horsepower, a 3-cylinder diesel with an advanced design and common rail injection, rarely found in the super economical, only in theory Greenline version. Recommended only for cars used on short distances and for people who are perfectly familiar with eco-driving techniques. Quite expensive to service. 1.4 TDI, 70 and 80 horsepower. A very simple 3-cylinder design with unit injectors, similar to the iconic 1.9 TDI. Economical and dynamic drive, worth recommending. 1.6 TDI, 75, 90 and 105 horsepower. Successor to 1.4 TDI and 1.9 TDI, with better parameters and good dynamics, but also more complicated and more expensive to service. Common rail injectors quite sensitive to fuel. 1.9 TDI, 105 horsepower. Simple engine with unit injectors. In the BLS version with DPF filter, it sometimes has big problems, and BSW without DPF. Recommended for routes and long mileage. List Featured engines. When it comes to the best engines, there are two from each group. The 1.4 MPI post-facelift and 1.6 MPI pre-facelift petrol engines are definitely worth recommending. The smaller one is dynamic enough, although it doesn't perform well on the road. Weak dynamics at higher speeds and no sixth gear. Both work perfectly with LPG, and a toroidal tank can be placed under the boot mat in place of the spare wheel. Fuel consumption oscillates around 6 to 7 L 100 kilometers, and exceeding 7.5 L 100 kilometers is practically unrealistic. In the initial period of production and in the previous generation of Fabia, the 1.4 engine had a problem with the breather valve clogging and freezing. This was almost completely solved after 2010. Older engines can be worn and consume more oil. When choosing a car before the facelift, it is better to consider the 1.6 version, which burns about 7.5 minus 8.0 L 100 kilometers. From diesels, I suggest two engines, 1.4 TDI and 1.9 TDI. Both are within 5.5 L 100 kilometers. Unfortunately, both are offered only for the facelift, so when buying a newer model, the choice ends with a slightly risky, not at all more economical 1.6 TDI, which is not cheap to repair. Although as long as it does not require it, it is great. Therefore, it is better to choose a 1.4 petrol engine with LPG. It is also worth mentioning a certain defect of the 1.4 TDI engine. In some units, after a greater mileage, axial play appears on the crankshaft retaining ring, which is most likely due to the three-cylinder design vibrations. Repair is expensive and basically comes down to replacing half or the entire engine. However, this does not apply to every unit. It all depends on the way it is used. Cars that drive a lot on the road are in the best condition. Discouraged engines. These are definitely 1.2 units, both petrol and diesel. They do not withstand high mileage, are unreliable and expensive to repair, and they also burn more than their larger capacity counterparts. The non-turbo petrol unit has a weak timing drive and is practically devoid of dynamics. The newer 1.2 TSI engine generates higher maintenance costs due to the timing drive and electronics. A better choice is a diesel, which can be conditionally recommended for short distances, but is too weak for the route. It can be expensive to repair due to its modern design. There is also an automatic, but only the 1.6 MPI version can be recommended because it worked with a simple converter gearbox. Interestingly, you can find such copies, and from a year younger than 2010. The second unit with an automatic is the 1.2 TSI, but here a 7-speed DSG gearbox with a double clutch is used. This is not the happiest combination from the point of view of buying and using a used car. However, such a version should not be completely negated. Is it worth buying a Skoda Fabia II? Although I base my opinion largely on my own copy, but also on the experiences of other users, I still objectively believe that this is a Segment B model worth recommending. Durable, cheap to run, quite economical, and at the same time spacious and very functional. The golden mean is the 1.4 MPI petrol unit supported by gas power. For families that need a larger boot, e.g. with 2 small children, I recommend the station wagon version. Thanks for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know of any problems with this car that I haven't mentioned, be sure to write about them in the comments.